Hello, Booknerds. Welcome to the Booknerds podcast. We are back. Last time around, we were with you with a book which had a lot of true crime in it. But now we are bringing in an all new genre. The book is about money, speaking the language of money, understanding money, having a good relationship with money, also evolving with the times. I must say, because a lot of, especially me as a millennial, I have seen too much change over a period of time. So, yeah, we'll discuss all of that with the author, Lavanya Mohan. She's with us. Thank you, Lavanya, for being on the podcast, first of all.
Thank you for having me, Rohan. I'm very happy to be here.
Okay. The name of the book is very interesting. Money doesn't grow on trees. So this phrase has haunted all of us growing up. you know, our parents have always told us, even if we didn't want to hear them say that, money doesn't grow on trees. And I have been saying this to my children. And I was like, now I'm not going to say this at all. This is so cliched, but true. And it is relatable. So great choice of the title. For those of you who don't know about Lavanya, she talks about money online. She's on Instagram. She's on X by Lavs Mohan. I'll leave the Instagram if I got it wrong by any chance. But I follow you, so I don't think so. I would have. Uh, and she previously in a previous life she was a CA. Now she's a writer. She writes about money. She has got a blog. I just checked out the blog, by the way. I missed it earlier. It's quite interesting. And she's from Chennai. She has written for many top publications: The Hindu, BuzzFeed, Vogue Business, and Elle, and many other things. You go follow her, you'll know more about her. And of course, the book is out, and it has launched recently, right? It hasn't
Yeah,
been
it was launched mid-May. I want to say May 12th. Between May 12th to May
okay.
14th, it hit bookstores.
Okay, so we are on the book tour, kind of. So this is more interesting. I'll ask you about the reactions that have been coming on the road while you're signing books and going around India. And But first of all, a lot of my team members and are very young. Their relationship with money is quite different from what I think of it as. I have had a hard time with money growing up. Let's call it that. But they have a completely different outlook. They are going for concerts. They are not scared of spending money. They are using Amazon Pay Later options and those Pay Later apps that have come in. What is your opinion about their relationship with money, and what are your observations?
At the outset, I don't think it's okay to like have a blanket assumption that young people are quote unquote bad with money. But like you said, they have
Okay.
a very different relationship with money. And I think a lot of it has to do with the age that they're living in. I feel
Yeah.
like if I had been a young person in this current world that we live in, my finances would be in terrible shape. Because when we were in our early 20s and when we were in between the ages of 18 to 25, right? Like, luckily for us, the internet hadn't blown up the
Yeah.
way it has today. We didn't have the kind of Instagram pressure that these kids do.
Absolutely.
Maroon 5 was not in India. Coldplay
I
wasn't.
don't like. I don't even think of calling it the internet. Like what I compare it to right now, that was not internet.
We lived in very innocent times, is what
Yeah.
I would say. I think the present generation has this very deadly cocktail, that they're kind of dealing with. On one hand, you have this Instagram generation where they're living on social media. Social media used to be a part of our life. I still remember this meme where, do you remember when you could step away from the computer and then your relationship with the internet was over? Like,
Yes.
remember when you could leave the internet? Um,
Absolutely.
so I think that is not possible for this generation. They're practically living in it. That so along with that comes all the pressures of all these experiences that they feel like they have to have. So that's one. Number two is that on the other side, we are witnessing this revolution in payments, right? with
Hmm.
the ease of transacting that UPI has brought in, with the kind of credit cards and with the kind of credit tools that are available. So at some level, I feel like I could close my eyes and do a UPI payment, right? It's become that easy. It's become frictionless, as they call
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
back in the day, we had a lot of friction, like starting with the fact that you had to sort out, a number of different things before you could make a payment. Like
Yeah.
credit cards weren't so easily available. You had to have proven something before you could have gotten a card. Today, they call you and they tell you you're instantly eligible, etc.
Yeah.
No pay later apps. It was either your debit card, which meant like your actual bank balance, or it meant some credit tool that you did not have access to. This
Yeah.
kind of pay later, simply pay, lazy pay, all of that did not exist, right? So
Yeah.
even if there was temptation, that last mile was not available to us to go
Right.
and like act on that temptation.
Mhm.
Whereas for young people today, it's so easily accessible. So I actually don't blame them at all. It's just that they're living in times that are terrible for their finances,
Yeah.
which kind of explains also this relationship with money that they're having, where it's like very live for today.
Yeah.
We'll figure out what happens tomorrow. And I think there are also a lot of life milestones therefore that are getting slower and slower for them, or are getting deprioritized for them. Like
Yeah.
I feel like even as millennials, we took our time with our life milestones, we took our time
Mhm.
with getting married, we took our time with having kids,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
we were quite late compared to Gen X, I would say, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And now the current generation of like Gen Z and like Gen Alpha, like you'll see them being even slower because a lot of these life milestones require money. I feel like
Absolutely.
from like your first job, starting out on your first job, to like getting into a relationship and figuring out relationships together and then
Yeah.
having kids, all of these stages require you to be financially stable, right? Like incrementally more stable. So
You are putting it mildly though.
yeah, I'm putting it very mildly. Like life is expensive, and in order to really like progress,
Yeah.
um, kind of spending and this kind of like getting into debt so early
Mhm.
is not at all helpful. But these are the times they're living in, So I also feel like it's very complicated. I can't blame them either. Like if all my friends were going for Diljit, yeah, I also want to go for Diljit. Like I'm also young, right? I should also live a little.
Yes.
Just that the definition of live a little, which used to
Yeah.
be like, maybe going out for drinks or a nice meal perhaps once a month,
Yeah.
has now kind of mutated into all these like concert experiences, weekend in Goa,
Yeah.
New Year in Thailand, that sort of thing. So I feel like they're just living in financially dangerous times, and it's just a
Absolutely.
problem.
I am just worried about I don't want their generation to rub off on me. I am just worried about that because everybody is on the same Instagram, right? Everybody is on the same platform. So you get kind of, okay, is this person having a lot of fun? I also want to be in Phuket right now. I also want to be there. Why not? I deserve it. I've been slogging it out for so long. I deserve to be there. So, anyways, this is an entire podcast, by the way, in itself.
It is. It is. There was this little Amy Poehler video which went out yesterday. I saw it on Instagram yesterday, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so true." Where she says, "Baby boomers were like, it's all about the money.
Hmm.
Gen X was like, is it about the money? Millennials are like, where is the money? And Gen Z is like, what is money?" So,
Absolutely, it's
so
crazy.
that's
It's
maybe
crazy.
the progression of,
Yeah,
our financial relationships or our relationships with
yeah.
money.
Okay, let's talk about babies because you have an entire chapter on it, and I've got a couple of kids, and they observe us. This is one question which I didn't put out in my kind of question
Yeah,
list, but
not the
yeah, not
document.
in the flow, not in the flow at all. We didn't think about this, but we try to give our kids the best experiences, and all of a sudden you figure out that they are used to it, and then to backtrack to something inferior, I'll tell you a personal example, and then you can perhaps enlighten us on this. Like in we were on a trip, on a work trip, and we checked into the Lalit or some five-star hotel in Bengaluru, and that was paid for, of course. We didn't pay for it, and then all of a sudden, after 3 days, the event is over, and we have to check into something else. So we think that okay, let's save money on this. So we check into something like maybe a 3-star comparative, maybe lesser.
Not
So
the last, basically.
matlab, obviously. And all of a sudden, my kids are like, we don't want to be here. We don't want to be here. Let's go back to that. So, these experiences that we're trying to give them a good life. But again, when then the benchmark is set, how does one balance all this? Either one doesn't show them that life, or I don't know. I don't have it figured out. What do you say about this?
No, I am on the same boat. I'm also a parent to a very observant 8-year-old, and it's amazing all the things that they observe. It's as simple as, you know, you're telling yourself, oh my God, I'm taking them abroad, right? And the thing about all these flights that go abroad is that they make you walk past business class first. And then you have to walk past business class to get to your seat. And the question that comes immediately is like, wow, these are nice. Can we sit here? And you're like, no, these are more expensive or whatever. But we're all going to the same place, right? Like, that's how
Right.
you tell them we're all going to the same place. We might as well,
Right.
save some money, etc.
Yeah.
But their whole point is like, but this is nicer. Why aren't we
Yeah.
here? You
Why
know,
not?
like very similar to what you said, right? The
Yeah.
moment you take them to like a five-star experience, the
Yeah.
immediate kind of reaction when you go to like a Lalit versus Ibis, for example,
Yes. Yes.
it's
Yes.
immediately like, why are we here?
Yeah.
And I think what's important is that we need to be honest with them.
Mm.
So I think that's what we're doing. Not like it works all the time, but we feel like it's still better than like not having to deal with it, because
Yeah.
these experiences also shouldn't come across as random. So
Mm.
one of the things my husband and I do is that we do tell our child that, listen, like mom and dad work really hard for their money, so we need to figure out what we need to spend on.
Yeah.
So, this is like a treat, because I'm fairly upfront with my child when I say I can afford it, I can't afford it.
Mm.
Like there's only like limited money that we
Mm.
have, and
Yeah.
we need to be careful about it. And
Yeah.
a lot of the times, I think what happens is that we as parents, we self censor ourselves, because
Mm.
we think that, okay, like they don't get it or they won't get it. But
Right.
children are very smart, they are very perceptive. And I
Mm.
think the earlier you kind of start introducing these money conversations where we say, like, mom and dad work really hard for their
Mm.
money, and you want to make sure you have enough money for tomorrow,
Mm.
like for when you want to study or for when
Mm.
you want to do something. We want to make sure we have money.
Mm.
That's why we can't spend, everything at one go. So
Yeah.
we have those conversations. There will be follow-up questions. Don't think that this is one of those easy things where
Absolutely.
like, okay, okay, and then sit down. There
Yeah.
will be follow-up questions. But
Yeah.
what it really does is that it does invite like this conversation, no? Like greater
Ah.
conversation about money.
Yeah.
And you actually have like this avenue
Mm.
to talk to your kids about money, which is not something that happens often. And I think it's important that kids especially understand that money is a limited resource, and that there is a lot of work that's being put into kind of bringing it home,
Yeah.
because that kind of lands with them as well. And I think we don't teach our kids delayed gratification as much as we ought to.
Yeah.
Uh, I also spoil my child, so let it
Absolutely.
not
Yeah.
seem like yeah, because at some level you're also like treating yourself like your own inner child that was in.
Yes.
For example, like whenever my kid asks for Lego, I do get it, because
Yeah.
I've always wanted Lego as a kid, and now I can afford it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, I'll buy you the set because
Yeah.
I can. You know?
You're so right. You're so right. Actually, we just want to, we want the best for them also. And at the same time, kind of give them a sense of a balanced opinion, but it's
Yeah.
harder said than
Yeah, and
done.
I don't think we should deprive them of that
Mm.
best experience that we know we can afford, right? Like,
Mm.
I
Mm.
know I can afford certain things for my child, and therefore I will be able to do it. But there are
Right.
also certain things which are like, a stretch, and I have to
Yeah.
be honest with my child and say, I can't. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like,
Yeah.
I wish I could, but I
Right.
can't because it's a limited resource and we're doing the best that we can.
Yeah.
I feel like the moment the child understands that, like mom and dad want the best for me, but they're not able to do right now, they do understand. I feel
Yeah.
like we need to give our kids also a chance. Yeah. Like,
Absolutely.
I,
Absolutely. Yeah. A
like,
Blackpink concert in Singapore can wait. I mean,
yes,
that's okay.
Taylor Swift can wait. There'll be a better
Taylor
band
Swift.
now when
Yes.
they start earning money.
Yes, yes. There is so much to talk about in this book. I what I was happy about was, of course, it is written on the Amazon page also very clearly that the book is trying to be a friend, sort of friend, to you and tell you things very softly and politely and in a fun way, which not politely but in a fun way, because there are so many pop culture references, all of that. Um, I think that's a great way to do because uh, to be honest, I am really fed up of the Finfluencers on YouTube. I'm really fed up because their tonality, and I'm not generalizing, but the famous ones is not like a friend actually. It's not like a friend. It's borderline condescending. And what's your opinion on that? And which influencers we should trust or not trust? What should we look for? Because there have been controversies around that as well. So tell us more about that, please.
I have a take. I'll get to
Okay.
it.
Okay.
But the book actually specifically mentions condescension, jargon free and also free of condescension, because I also felt that way as a finance professional. I felt like I was being talked down to every time I watched these videos. And I was like, kya chal raha hai? Because it's the way you are being told that you don't know this, or you suck at this,
Mm,
therefore let me enlighten you. That's
mm,
usually like the way it's said, right? So I
yeah.
do think that condescension is very prevalent.
Mm,
um I don't know if it's done as like a technique to get eyeballs, which brings me to my take, right?
mm.
Good financial advice, it can never be good content. I-
Okay.
I'll explain this because
Okay.
I think when you're a content creator, the pressure is always going to be on the numbers. You have to grab eyeballs, you have to
Right.
get engagement, you have to
Right.
make people comment on your reel, you have to make people share your reel, which means you either have to enrage them or delight them. Like it has to be, you have to draw out an extreme reaction, right?
Right.
Especially today when we're almost like so numb to content in the way that we scroll. You really have to incite the viewer.
Yeah.
So what happens is that influencers are also a victim of the platform.
Mm,
So they're always optimizing for these views, which means that they are trying to figure out topics, angles, opinions
yeah.
that can get them these views, right? Whereas really good financial advice is actually really boring. It's the same thing, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And
Mm,
honestly, you only need to see a chartered accountant a couple of times a year. It's like you only need to see your dentist a couple of times a year. And
right.
good financial advice will never make for good content because it is boring and because it is fairly straightforward. And after a point, once you've gotten a hold of the basics, you don't need to know too much, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is my personal view on like influencers, in that I think they're great for awareness. I think they're fantastic. I think they've really
Yeah.
done a great job in terms of making financial awareness a lot more mainstream. I think a lot more of us know more about mutual funds, ETFs, stocks, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
than we ever did before, thanks to influencers.
Absolutely.
So I think they're
Yeah.
great for awareness.
Yeah.
But I would definitely say do not take any of their opinions. I don't
Mm,
matter who you're talking about. Don't take any of their opinions um, too seriously,
mm,
because if they're on a platform and if their full-time job is to be on that platform,
mm.
then it's the platform that they value and not your financial health.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that is my broad take. I just feel like super for awareness. If you come across a new
Yeah.
topic, like take it in. But
Mm,
if you really want an opinion, if you really want an advice, please seek out a professional in your life.
yeah.
That's simple.
Absolutely. I mean, I also agree with that because in terms of awareness, there were certain things like perhaps small cases I wasn't aware about. How to whether there was such a thing. I was not aware about that. the whether you opt for it or not, I think so it's fine up to an individual, but many things like that, I mean, I wasn't aware about. Good for that. And also they have to satisfy the sponsors many times, the paid
Absolutely.
promotions.
Absolutely. I know this because my day job, I lead content at an insurtech company, ACO. I don't know if you've heard.
I know. It's in the book,
Um,
it's written in the book.
yeah. So it's in the book. So my day job is to actually work with influencers from time to time, help them figure out how to kind of position ACO, etc.
Um,
So I know how ready they are to take on sponsored content because it is livelihood for them, right? And I know how I can get my way as well as a brand.
yes, yes.
So I really, it's a slippery slope definitely for the influencers, but
Mm,
I think in this day and age, everything can be sponsored.
yeah,
So audiences just need to be that much more clearer when they're filtering things out, right? Like
right.
you take what's important. If they're doing a sponsored video on term insurance,
Mm,
try to understand term insurance and then
yeah.
figure it out on your own versus blindly taking their recommendation.
Yeah, we'll come to the tools, to the portfolio stuff, because that's what most of the people will be here for. I know that because we are always worried about our portfolio, its health, and how to pick one, and etc. etc. But I have come across many videos where there is no influencer talking about ACO, by the way. Shout out to them. To your company. They Everybody's talking about, I think, सबसे सस्ते में वही चल रहा है, so it's kind of, uh, if you are doing a good job, people will talk about it, and these are organic, uh, you know views that some of, if it's a good company, it'll do well, I think so, with or
Yeah, you
without
actually get
influencers.
to know about it one way or the other because
Yeah,
I think the way we usually kind of go about in this space is that if not the influencer, if one of your friends have had a great experience, then
absolutely.
that is what we found is to be the most powerful
Yeah.
lever for conversion, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and things are changing also. I mean, it's about user created content more so in 2025 rather than perhaps the previous years. Okay, what about this very cliched question, a balanced portfolio? You have addressed it in the book also. You have kind of gone through many of them, many of the things that one should do. I felt really happy because I was ticking off many of them, not all of them, of course. But can you give us a broad sense of, how should a balanced portfolio look like for someone in 2025?
I actually, and I've written this as well, like no one portfolio should be the same. I would compare one's portfolio to be like their household garam masala mix or their like their masala dabas.
Yeah,
It's in the book because I feel like every household right has its own preferences and tastes and needs. Some
right.
houses want it to be spicy. Some houses like it to be mild. Some of them like the taste of one particular spice a little bit more.
True.
So all of us have different tolerance levels. All of us have different needs,
Yeah.
and this portfolio should exist to serve our needs. So
Okay.
I think the first question you want to ask yourself is, what do I really want to do with
Hmm.
my savings, right?
Hmm.
Like, how do I really want to go about it, and what am I really going to use it for? For example, you have a couple of children, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Right.
Your needs are going to be very different from a double income, no kids kind of couple.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So everyone's needs are very different, and I think your portfolio should exist only to serve your needs
Yeah.
versus look cool or look sexy. It's not the
Yeah.
portfolio's job to look sexy.
Yeah.
The portfolio's job is to make sure you have the money that you wanted at the end of the time that you were planning for.
Yeah.
So that I think is my ideal kind of approach to building a portfolio.
Okay.
And in terms of actually like going into it, I think when you're young, you want to start with putting money in things that you have access to. For
Okay.
example, real estate is not something that everybody can go and put their money in right away. It
Right.
could be a great part of a portfolio, it could even
Yeah.
serve your needs, but there is a very high kind of barrier to entry, right? Like, not everyone is going to have the money to cough up for a down payment, not
Yeah.
everyone wants to get into debt, right? So take those complicated components out. is
Yeah.
what I would start with. Start with things that are accessible and easy to understand. If you understand how like a mutual fund works,
Yeah.
then you can go ahead and put money in it. I always recommend mutual funds over direct stocks because I think direct stocks are very volatile and it requires
Yes.
you to study the company and really have some belief in its future, which I think not all of us have the time for.
Are
Mutual
people
funds are
listening? Are people listening to this advice? I think everybody's, directly investing. I don't understand it because most of these people, when I'm talking to them, like I I don't think so they have the knowledge to kind of do that. I mean directly invest. And then they are just investing helter skelter, and sometimes, and then their emotions also kind of are varying with that. For example, if there's a good day on the office in the office, then they'll be very happy, and and suddenly it happens. I mean,
it's
so
like gambling, right? In a way, because you're putting money into things that you don't fully understand,
yeah,
and there are other forces that you can't control or predict, right?
yeah,
For example, let's say you put money in some kind of petrol company,
yeah,
and all of a sudden the country just decides to ban petrol. They like, okay, we don't want
yeah,
petrol, or then something else happens. You don't have any control over it, right?
yeah,
This could go for plastics as well. What if like it's a single-use plastic company, and then all of a sudden plastic is banned? You don't
absolutely.
have control over any of these environmental factors, right? That kind of shape these things.
Yeah,
So I would definitely not put money in direct stocks unless you've had the time to research the industry they operate in. You've
yeah,
had time to research the actual company and
mhm,
what they're based out of. So I definitely think that that's very risky, right?
yeah,
Not something I would recommend. Whereas mutual funds are operated by actual experts whose day job is to like look into all of these things and
yeah,
give you a diversified mix to begin with. So you're not going all in into one company. You get a mix, right? I personally prefer both index funds as well as like equity funds
okay,
because when you're saving for a longer period of time, they give you better returns. So
yeah,
I would definitely go in that route.
yeah,
And the other accessible kind of investment that you can make is also into gold and like
hmm,
gold allied kind of investments like bonds or like companies that manufacture gold. You have gold mutual funds, you
yeah,
have gold ETFs.
yeah,
I would definitely recommend gold because
yeah,
it's a nice counter to your equities because when equities drop, generally like gold goes up.
yeah,
So know that even if one drops, the other will go up, and that there's like that balance
right,
that both of them see.
yeah,
And apart from that, I think longer term investments like NPS, for example,
yeah.
great for both tax saving as well as for
Can you mention
retirement.
the full form also, because many of
National
our, yeah, yeah,
National Pension Scheme, which is kind of like the Provident Fund or PF's competitor.
yeah,
It's the slightly sexier, younger version of the PF. Uh, and it's a little easier to manage. And from what I understand, it's not as problematic as the Provident Fund to take your money back from.
ah,
So I think that is the difference. Also, it's far more tax efficient than any other investment that's out
right,
there today.
right,
So um, those would be like my starter packs, right? If I were to give you a portfolio starter pack, I would say
yeah,
start putting money into your mutual funds, bit of gold,
yeah,
and make sure you have a retirement plan, like something
yeah,
that you're putting money in every year
yeah,
that you'll get when you turn 60, 65 or whatever.
right,
So that would be like my starter pack. Apart from that, health insurance, very important.
yeah,
Because what health insurance does is that it makes sure you have savings to invest in the first place.
yeah,
Because medical emergencies are so expensive.
yeah.
Um, and I say this as someone who works in an insurance company. I've seen the numbers. You think you know what an angioplasty costs, you have no idea how much it costs by the time you're out.
I don't even want to know.
You don't even want to know. You don't even want to know how much it costs to get a heart treatment done, kidney treatment done, liver treatment
Yeah.
done, and costs are increasing by 11 to 14% year on year, right?
I read
Like
that you mentioned 14% inflation, medical inflation, right?
medical inflation.
That's ridiculous. That's
It's
that's
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
And
Because
India, think with the kind of medical tourism that's happening, there should be a way to like make this cheaper. It's only getting more expensive.
yeah,
So I would definitely say
I thought I suppose X is my number of health insurance. I after reading the book, I was really worried about it because I was like, whatever you are mentioning, although you have not been very particular about figures, that is like for too technical perhaps for the book, but I was worried about it. I was like, I think so. It should be 10 lakhs more because looking at what you're talking about, the inflation, it will like I won't have any money to in like 5 odd years, 5 7 years. I think so to
no,
cater to
it's
the same disease.
because I think, like you said, it would have gotten too much if I were to like start listing out how much like a knee
Yeah,
replacement costs today and
yeah,
how much it can cost tomorrow.
yeah.
But it's definitely worrying for sure. And also, there will be certain kind of medical things that happen where you won't get coverage. For example, I don't know if a lot of folks know this, but the only time you kind of can get your C-section reimbursed through health insurance is if you have corporate health insurance, right? Only corporate health insurance takes
Damn.
care of your C-section. If you have like, if you're both professionals with an independent practice,
Right,
for example, which was
right.
the case with both me and my husband. Like I was in my
Mm,
CA practice, and my
mm.
husband is a lawyer.
Okay,
We had our individual practices, and I had a retail health policy. And then
okay.
I found out that my policy does not cover
Yeah,
maternities.
yeah.
Whereas after I got into the corporate kind of workforce, I found out that okay, like these policies are the ones that cover like a
Right,
C-section or any kind of maternal
right.
hospitalizations, right? And those are very expensive. Like a
Yeah.
C-section 8 years ago, I remember was a lakh. I'm sure it's
It's much more now, depending on where you are, which tier city you are in, which kind of hospital.
absolutely, and it's only
But
getting
that,
more and more expensive.
huh?
So I would definitely say, like, if I were to list a starter pack,
Yeah,
start with mutual funds, get health insurance, put money in gold in any kind of way. Like today, there's even digital gold,
yeah,
and then put money in a retirement plan. I will also say one more thing. All of this happens only after you've settled any outstanding debt that you might have. Please don't do any of these things when you have like an unpaid credit card bill,
yeah.
because when debt snowballs, it's a lot more expensive
Right.
than your savings start accumulating. So it makes more sense to clear off all your debts, especially the short term ones. I'm
Yeah,
not talking like any long term car loan or home loan
yeah,
or anything.
yeah,
But if you have outstanding credit card bills, you've been paying only the minimum payment and
yeah,
you've been letting the balance kind of accumulate, clear
yeah,
that off first on all your
yeah,
cards and
yeah.
then start saving. That is my other piece.
That's a huge statement, guys. Just note it down because that is,
Yeah,
I think that's a pandemic in itself, actually. Right now, and I think we know it as a country, but we have not acknowledged it because all the credit card videos I'm watching on YouTube, everybody's serving amazing credit cards, all of that. It's not bad, but I think so. It needs superhero like ability to kind of manage everything, not superhero, but it has to be very precise, otherwise you can kind of be bust in no time. uh,
absolutely. And I think because there's very little awareness around how these tools work, and the only kind of advertising we're seeing around credit cards on the internet today are all these people going business class,
yeah,
getting stuff, like having these amazing, cool experiences. It's
lounge.
almost like the credit card itself, lounge. It's almost like the credit card itself is the substitute for like some free money, right? I feel like there is a lot of carelessness. I want to say carelessness in the way in which we're dealing with credit cards.
Yeah,
Personal debt has climbed up to an insane high. I remember seeing this statistic just 2 weeks ago saying if you remove mortgage, right, if you
right.
remove home loans,
Mhm.
India is the second most indebted country in the world if you remove home loans.
Not a good
South Korea is
statistic.
number one. South Korea is number one, and India is number two, like most indebted country. And it's a combination of both your casual debts through credit cards, etc., that the middle and upper middle class are getting into,
Yeah.
as well as like the casual debts that the working class folks are also getting into. So India
The
has a
EMIs,
debt problem. Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
small
India has
EMIs, right? And if we take out that factor of mortgages, then the US would be number one.
yeah, I think America has a more
Yeah,
robust kind of. If you were to put mortgages back in, so if you were to
yeah.
include home loans, then America kind of like takes number
I
one.
think we are going to catch up very soon. We are going to win that battle because we are too many and we are doing reckless things. And a lot of youngsters have got credit cards now. Let's go to another topic which I really wanted to talk about, and then we'll come to the final part of this podcast. Um, we have we you talk about the grammar of money in the starting of the book, and you define some terms. Can you please define a little bit to our readers, because uh,
So
and also before I forget, guys, keep this book and read it every year once. I'm just I just know this is not a sponsored podcast at all. Just read it once every year, at the beginning of the year, ending of the year, whatever. Just once you read it, you will not make those mistakes which a lot of us may have made. I'm like 40 right now, but I wouldn't have made those mistakes if I had read this earlier, maybe in my 20s. Okay, Lavanya, please.
sure. So I basically talk about money as a language versus mathematics. I feel like a lot of us equate money to mathematics quite wrongly,
Hmm.
in the sense that we look at it, we say it's numbers, therefore I want to understand it, it's complicated, it's like math. Whereas I think what I would want the readers to know is that money is more like a language. It's like learning French
Right.
or Kannada right now if you're living in Bangalore,
Yeah.
or Hindi or whatever, right? It's just like learning a language. It has its own vocabulary, it has its own grammar. And I think once you take that bias of maths off, it becomes much simpler to learn, even in your own head. So, what I describe as grammar are essentially like the four fundamental principles that we learn when we're learning finance itself.
Yeah.
The first is time value of money.
Okay.
Okay, time value of money is basically the principle that money today is worth more than money tomorrow. So, if you really think about it, you'd have heard your grandparents say, "Oh, you remember like when I was a child, or when I was young, I could buy a house with 100 rupees." You know,
Yeah.
like the value of 100 rupees from like the 70s or 60s or whatever is very different from what 100 rupees can get you today, right? So
Absolutely.
that's the time value of money, which means that when you're saving for something in the future, don't think about it in today's value terms.
Hmm.
Remember that it's going to be much more expensive down the line.
Right.
So save extra. So this is basically to help you predict better,
Hmm.
right? So if you think it's going to be X in the future, it's very likely going to be 3X at the
Right.
very minimum. I'm
Hmm.
just like giving a guess, right? So always um, plan for extra or plan for more. That is what time value of money really teaches us. The second thing, the second kind of foundational pillar is inflation, which is actually kind of like they're both two sides of the same coin. Time value of money and inflation are two sides of the same coin. Inflation is essentially price rise. It's the
Yeah.
fact that things tomorrow are going to cost more than they do today.
Right.
So that's what it tells you. And again, it tells you to save extra because things are going to be more expensive tomorrow. We talk about health inflation,
Yeah.
the fact that healthcare is costing much more
Hmm.
afterwards. We talk about food inflation,
Hmm.
like doing your groceries is a great reality check, like going
Yeah.
out there and paying for your groceries is a great reality check when it comes to inflation.
Absolutely. I didn't do it for 3 years, like the pandemic years and plus one. And after that, I started doing it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I changed my grocery wala, and I was like, okay, this guy was charging me so much more. I need to go out and explore more, know the exact numbers, because when I order it from home, I don't even realize what I'm paying for the quality. That is
because it's
another thing.
frequency, right? And you're like, okay, I'm ordering little things constantly, and
Yeah,
therefore you don't feel like a pinch. But
yeah.
you go out there and you like do the whole thing, then it's very
Yeah.
different.
Buy
So
that broccoli, guy. Buy that broccoli, and you'll know.
yeah, yeah. Buy it together. When
Right?
you just buy broccoli of Instamart, you don't feel the pain. But when you go and you buy like a week's worth of groceries, that's a great reality check into food itself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the third principle is liquidity, which basically talks about how quickly you can convert something into real cold hard cash, right?
Mm,
So the reason I talk about liquidity again is because a lot of traditional investments that we were told about, like buy a house, invest in real estate, etc. It might show growth, but the time it takes for you to convert something into cold hard cash is not something you're actively thinking about. You're
yeah.
thinking it's growing. But if you say invest in real estate, and I say invest, for example, if you're buying a property just so that it'll grow in some time and then you can sell it,
Yeah.
finding a seller, for example, is very hard in real estate. Another example that I can give you are things like NFTs today.
Yes. Yes.
If you remember, like the NFTs of
I
yore,
know. I
like
know. Yeah.
yeah, like finding a seller today is very hard. They're not liquid at all now. Previously, you could sell them, like there'd be buyers all around. Now you can't get rid of them, or you
Yeah.
can't convert them to cash.
Yeah.
Another example is art. People
Yes.
invest in art, right? But finding a buyer for your investment can be very difficult.
Yeah.
So essentially, how quickly can you convert your assets into cash?
Mm,
So mutual funds, stocks, even fixed deposits for that matter. Fixed deposit today, like, is one of the most liquid things that you can have. It's on the
yeah.
app.
Yes.
You press a button, and it's inside your bank account in like 5-10 minutes,
I do.
right?
I think I hate that actually in some ways because it's easy to take it out. But I think I understand what you're saying, that it's at least it's at your disposal. And when our mini war hit, I was just thinking about all of those things. What you're talking about right now, I was like, what can I do? I mean, we all preempt things, try to preempt things.
No, no. That's why I always recommend having an emergency fund in an FT so that you have like that hygiene of it, being separate.
Yeah.
Whereas you also know that you have the safety of like pressing the button and getting it into your bank account when you
Yeah.
need it.
Yeah.
So the reason you want to think about liquidity is so that you have money at the time that you need it. If
Yeah.
you need things only 10, 15 years from now, go ahead and put it in things that are not very liquid, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead and like buy that plot of land,
Mm,
whatever,
mm,
or whatever it is that you can afford, whatever it is you want to put money in, go ahead and lock it in because you need that money only 10, 15 years from now.
right.
But for things like shit hits the fan fund,
Mm,
like for medical emergencies, I don't know, you're laid off
yeah.
if something happens. You also want to have money that is easily kind of retrievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is the principle that you want to think about because it's not like, oh, I'm investing, I have a portfolio.
Yeah.
You know that you can get your portfolio at the time that you're supposed to get it out, right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately you'll have to get the money out at some point,
Yeah.
and you want to make sure that you can get the money out. So that is liquidity. And the fourth and final pillar, or the fourth and final like grammar principle, is actually compounding, which is that money only grows when it's left untouched for a long time.
Yeah.
It's kind of like seeing your own house plant. Sometimes you keep looking at it, nothing happens. Then you ignore it for a bit. There'll be like fresh foliage everywhere. So compounding is when the money that your investments have earned, sometimes interest, let's call it interest, let's say an FT, for example,
Yeah.
earns you 7% interest today. That 10 lakh would have earned 7%, which
Yeah.
is like, I want to say 70,000.
Yeah.
And then 10 lakh 70,000 together will earn 7%. So your 70,000 is earning interest.
Yeah.
And this will constantly keep happening where it will keep snowballing, snowballing, snowballing,
Mm,
to the point where the investment is actually unrecognizable like 10, 20 years down the line. And 7% is the growth rate for an FT. But if you put money in mutual funds, you will see double digit growth sometimes.
yeah.
And there is this thing called the rule of 72, where if you divide 72 by the growth rate,
Yeah.
say 10%, right?
Yeah.
That will tell you how long it will take for your money to double.
Okay.
So if I put money in something that grows at 10% annually,
Yeah.
in 7 years, my money would have doubled.
Right.
So now imagine this along with the power of putting money in month on month, right? Like an SIP,
Yeah.
you're putting money in month on month on month on month on month.
Mm.
So growth happens in time. There's this very famous like Warren Buffet kind of learning or insight as well, which is that he actually made the bulk of his wealth after he turned 50. It
Yeah.
was
Absolutely.
really like that inflection point.
I think so. I have some of the books here. I have this one, and there are many. There are many which address. Recently, I read one. It's called "The Perceptive Investor" by an author from Europe. So you're so right. I mean, he was in it for so long,
And he
but
was investing from he was like 20. So you can imagine like how long it took for him to
uh,
really for his wealth to skyrocket, right? And he stayed the course. He stayed on his path. So
um, you are you have mentioned that you are a money nerd, and you have been making good content on Instagram. There's been growth. You've been meeting readers also now. I believe you have had some book signings.
yeah, yeah, a couple.
Yeah. So what is the one myth that you feel that should go away right now in the money space?
One money myth that I think this is something I feel very strongly about. It's that gender has nothing to do with how good or bad you are with money.
Wow. Yeah.
Women can be just as good in
Mm,
investing as men, and men can also be poor at investing. It's just that we've grown up with this whole perception that finances are something that dad, bhaiya, boyfriend, husband will take care of. So you don't need to take care of that
yeah.
aspect in your life
Yeah.
because it's been taken care of by you.
Mm,
And I also think, therefore, the discussions around money are always between men.
yeah.
Smoke breaks, whatever, they get together, they discuss. They're far more open. I will give
Mm,
them that credit. They're far more open when it comes to talking about money.
yeah.
Whereas we have been left to deal with grocery budgets and then, you know, gossip. So
Yeah.
that, like, how much he spent on that lehenga, like that sort of
Right.
gossip. It's our
Yeah.
money discussion, right?
Mm,
So I feel like because of that, we've kind of fooled ourselves into thinking that, like this is not my scene. I
yeah.
don't want to do this. Like
Um,
it's somebody else is taking care, no? Like why should I care?
I'm not good
Well,
with money. I'm not good with money. That's a common
I
this
see
thing.
so many intelligent women, like people smarter than me, tell me stuff like, no, yeah, like I'm very bad.
Yeah.
I can't.
Oh, yeah,
Why?
I think so. It was in your book. I read a lot, so I kind of sometimes misplace quotes
That's
and
okay.
instances. I think it was in your book that you have talked about, people in CEOs, etc., who
Oh
have
yeah,
no
yeah,
clue. It's in your book, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So no, not like no clue, but these were like think of them as like wives of very prominent entrepreneurs and
Ah,
very prominent businessmen, right? They're also on the board.
yes.
Obviously, they're on the board because it's
Yeah.
also like, it might be a listed company, but it's still part of like a family setup.
Family
It was a
thing. Yeah.
family that started it. Yeah. So they're a part of the board. They are shareholders. A lot of family run companies, what they do is that they separate like the administration from the board.
Yeah.
So you have the professionals kind of run the show, but they are answerable to the board and the primary shareholders, right?
Yeah.
So these women, like superb levels of power, right? Like I can't even imagine the levels of power they have. And I've mentioned it also. These women, I ended up taking a workshop for them on like navigating a balance sheet.
Okay.
And I remember when we went through it and they were like, thank you so much. This is so useful because they were so afraid of asking questions about their own companies
Hmm.
because of how they thought they'd be perceived, right? Because either they'd be like, oh my God, like, I can't believe she's asking this question.
Hmm.
Or they would be talked down to, how these influencers, we spoke about condescension,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
some other uncle will throw more jargon at them, and they're going to be
Right.
more confused,
Right.
right? So they just needed an outlet to like learn within a space that was free of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like after I came out of that workshop, I was like, oh my god, if this is like the situation for these extremely intelligent, amazing, powerful women,
Mm-hmm.
what is the scene like for the rest of us? You know, I was fairly young and I grew up in a household that was very vocal about money. Like
Mm-hmm.
I remember my mother participated a lot in like the households, like investment decisions. My father told her everything. He wanted her to know everything. He wanted us to know everything. And at that point in time, it was like, oh my God, not another thing. But like as soon as I came out, I realized like we were complete freaks for
Yeah.
doing these things that nobody else. knew.
I think so. You would be the 1%ers because most households, like in my household, it was so bad to talk about money. It was so bad. You know, if you are
Yeah,
talking about money, then you are a lesser human, I suppose.
yeah. And those feelings are so strong, right? Like
Yeah.
I write about this in the book as well. In that the way we describe people is also so money coded. We
Mhm.
say like greedy, conjuice,
Yeah.
generous. It's all money coded, and every family has a different way in which it deals with money, right? Like for example, if, I remember someone else, a friend, talking to me about this, where if you have slightly older parents,
Mhm.
right? If either you're the last child or you were like late, or if your parents had you at a slightly older age and they're
Mhm.
getting old, right?
Yeah.
And you want to broach the topic of, okay, have you figured out like your
That's
will,
something.
etc. It becomes like one full on
Am
family
I going to
drama.
die? You want me to die?
Like, yeah, one is, do you want me to die?
Yeah.
Two, like, do you want to send me out of my own house before I
Yes.
die?
Yes. Yes.
And it has nothing to do with them wanting the property. It's just like, do you have something? Do you need me to help? Because I think one of the things that the pandemic really taught people was that how painful life can be
Yeah.
when you don't have your affairs sorted, right?
Absolutely.
And it's such a
Absolutely.
practical thing. Basically, you keep putting this off because you're like, I love my family too much to do this, to like invite death, only to put them through like extreme suffering at a terrible time. Because I have personally seen so many widows having to deal with paperwork when they should be dealing with grief. Like the entire family was just running around from like registrar office to registrar office, from like
Yes.
courts to other government
Take the
offices,
death certificate to 100 offices.
with our famous sarkari paperwork when they should be dealing with grief, right? And that just adds to the grief, if anything.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
lost my
but
parents. Sorry to intervene. I lost my parents like um, just before COVID and after COVID, and I didn't have time to grieve because half the time I was, taking care of all this paperwork. After a couple of years, I was like just trying to remember, whether I had actually dealt with it or not. I'm still kind of processing it because this paperwork takes the emotion out of what you're feeling. You don't realize it, and that's such a valid point and an example.
yeah, so I really think that that's probably like another money myth perhaps that you want to think about, which is
Yeah,
that taking care of your affairs doesn't mean you're inviting death. It actually means that you're looking out for your family. It's actually a very pure expression of love in that
yeah,
you don't want them to suffer after you're gone. So
yeah.
I definitely think that we are terrible as a country. We are terrible, I think, as a
Agree,
culture when it
agree.
comes to dealing with what happens after life.
Yeah,
And I definitely think that that is something that we need to sort. We keep thinking that not having a will is an act of love. That is a myth. Having a will and getting your paperwork sorted is the greatest act of love that you can bestow upon your children.
I'll need a personal session with you now. Anyway, so
No,
you know,
no, absolutely. In fact, in one of the signing sessions or in one of the book
yeah,
sessions, one question was kind of asked about this, saying
mm,
that, um, how do people, why do people change after like they find out what the will says, and it's
Yeah.
because the parent never discussed this. Like
Yes.
there'll be one child that they probably think deserves a bit more, and they've never had this conversation, right? And then the end result is that the siblings have stopped being siblings and they're fighting things out in court.
This is the most common thing, I think. So you are in the profession and you have come across all these things. It's like it's so common now, and I don't know how it's going to be solved.
70% of property disputes in the high courts are between families.
Absolutely, I agree.
So that's why, like,
Yes.
taking care of your affairs is like the
Yes.
greatest thing you can do.
Yes, this is too close to home. Anyways, let's not talk about this. But thank you so much, Lavanya. I had planned for like 35 minutes, but it has gone up to 55 because the book is amazing. It's called
Thank you
Money
so much.
Doesn't Grow on Trees. And not even kidding, guys. If you don't read it, you're going to lose out. FOMO. Again, I'm I'm putting the bait out there. I'm also like
I hope. Please buy the book.
it's so it's so cheap compared to what you're going to save and earn because of that. Look at that from that perspective. It's an
The
investment.
ROI is fantastic on the book.
ROI is lakh X. So, anyways, thank you so much for being on the Book Nerds podcast. This has been very interesting. It's rare that I go beyond my time limit, but I couldn't help it. And still, I had so many questions. I didn't even talk about freelancers and businesses. So, guys, read the book. You'll know more. And also, leave a review on Amazon. You can speak to Lavanya if you want to. She is on Instagram. I leave the Instagram also here
Yes, please.
in the comments also. And thank you so much, Lavanya. Thank you.
Thank
And
you so much.
oh yes, completely forgot Simon and Schuster. Shout out to them.
Yes. Shout out to Simon and Schuster, Megha Mukherjee, greatest editor of all time. Thank you.
Yes. If not for them, this book wouldn't have been possible. So thank you so much for connecting us also and bringing out such amazing books. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ron. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you.
We'll get nerdy about books hopefully offline as well.
Oh yes.